Welcome back, everybody, to the Dependent Fanatic channel. We are talking top 10 easiest schedules in college football coming up for 2025. This includes every game on their slate. I went through every Power 4 team. We took all the records from their opponents from last year, totaled them up, and I know that teams get better from year to year, teams get worse from year to year, some stay the same. So just an idea, general idea of a tough schedule, of how tough a schedule is for each individual team. I'm going to give you where they are, road or away, and their records from last season for each of these 10 teams. So here we go. The 10th easiest schedule in the Power 4 is Kansas. Kansas went 5-7 last year. They play Fresno State, who went 6-7 last year. They play Wagner from the FCS. Their records do not apply. So teams that play FCS kind of get docked for their schedules, which makes it easier or harder depending on the record that FCS team had. That is not counted. But Wagner is their second game of the season for Kansas. Then they are at Missouri, a 10-3 team from last year. West Virginia is 6-7. Cincinnati is 5-7. At UCF was 4-8. At Texas Tech was 8-5. Kansas State was 9-4. Oklahoma State was 3-9. Arizona, they're on the road at Arizona, was 4-8. Iowa State on the road, they were 11-3, and Utah was 5-7. That adds up to 4 winning teams that Kansas gets to play this upcoming year. Now, you might think, well, you have an easy schedule, you have an easier path to the playoff. Well, that is true if you don't slip up more than once or at the very minimum twice, because you don't have the quality wins that can build a resume for an at-large team if you do not play one of the harder schedules. So if you play one of the top 10 hardest schedules, then you might be able to lose 3 games because you played 9 other really great teams and you beat them. So there's a trade-off to having an easy schedule. Here they are right now. The 9th easiest schedule belongs to Baylor. 8-5 last year they went. They open with Auburn at home, a 5-7 team. They are at SMU, who went 11-3. Samford was an FCS team, so they do not count. Arizona State, 11-3. Oklahoma State on the road was 3-9. Kansas was 9-4. At TCU, also 9-4. At Cincinnati, 5-7. UCF was 4-8. Utah was 5-7. At Arizona was 4-8, and Houston was 4-8. So only 4 winning teams for Baylor on the docket for the 2025 schedule. All right, the number 8 easiest schedule in the Power 4 belongs to Virginia Tech, who went 6-7 last year. They opened the season in a neutral site versus South Carolina, who was 9-4 last year. Vanderbilt was 7-6. ODU was 5-7. Wofford was an FCS. At NC State was 6-7. Wake Forest was 4-8. At Georgia Tech, who was 7-6. Cal was 6-7. Louisville was 9-4. They're at Florida State, who went 2-10. Miami went 10-3, and they're at Virginia, who went 5-7. They play 5 winning teams from last year. But in totality, if you add up all those records, it's actually easier than Baylor's and Kansas's. All right, moving on to number 7. That belongs to Wake Forest, who went 4-8 last season. They open with 2 FCS teams, Kennesaw State and Western Carolina. And then they have NC State, a 6-7 team. Georgia Tech was a 7-6 team. They are at Virginia Tech, who was 6-7. At Oregon State, who was 5-7. SMU at home, who was 11-3. and then they're at FSU, who was 2-10, at Virginia, who was 5-7. North Carolina was 6-7. Delaware, another FCS opponent, that makes 3 for Wake Forest. And then they're at Duke to end the season, a 9-4 team from last season. They play only 3 winning Power 4 teams from last year. Missouri is number 6 out of the SEC, the lone SEC team with one of these easy schedules. They went 10-3 last season. They play Central Arkansas Week 1 FCS. They play Kansas 5-7. Louisiana, who was 10-4. They play South Carolina 9-4. Massachusetts 2-10. Alabama 9-4. They're at Auburn 5-7. At Vanderbilt 7-6. They have Texas A&M at home 8-5. Mississippi State at home 2-10. All right, they're at Oklahoma, who was 6-7, and they're at Arkansas, who was 7-6. So back up to 5 winning teams here, but still an easier schedule as we move down this list. Florida State has the 5th easiest schedule. Good thing, because they were 2-10 last season. Alabama opens it up, though, a 9-4 team, and then they play, is that Eastern Texas A&M or something, an FCS team. Then they play Kent State, who was 0-12 last year. They are at Virginia, a 5-7 team. Miami at home, 10-3. Pitt at home, 7-6. They're at Stanford, 3-9. They have Wake Forest, 4-8. They're at Clemson this year, 10-4. And they have Virginia Tech at home, 6-7. They have NC State on the road, 6-7. And then they end with Florida, at Florida, who went 8-5 last season. They also play 5 winning teams. All right. The first Big Ten team, Illinois, has the 4th easiest schedule in the Power 4 conferences. They went 10-3 last season. They play Western Illinois in FCS. They are at Duke, 9-4. They play Western Michigan, 6-7. They are at Indiana, who went 11-2. They have USC at home, 7-6. They are at Purdue, who was 1-11. They do have Ohio State at home, 14-2 last year. They are at Washington, 6-7. They have Rutgers at home, 7-6. Maryland, 4-8. Then they go to Madison to take on Wisconsin, a 5-7 team. And then they wrap it up with Northwestern at home, a 4-8 team. Also with 5 winning teams from last season on the schedule. Now, starting to get easier here. Virginia is the 3rd easiest schedule. 5-7 last season they went. They play Coastal Carolina, who went 6-7. They are at NC State, who went 6-7. They play William and Mary, who is FCS. They have Stanford, who was 3-9. They have Florida State, who was 2-10. They are at Louisville with a 9-4 record. They have Washington State with an 8-5 record. Then they're at North Carolina, 6-7. They're at Cal, 6-7. Wake Forest, 4-8. And then at Duke, 9-4. And Virginia Tech at home, 6-7. Only 3 winning teams that they have to play from last season. The second easiest schedule in the Power 4, Texas Tech from the Big 12. 8-5 they went last year. They play Arkansas Pine Bluff FCS in week 1. Then they have Kent State as well, 0-12. They have Oregon State, who was 5-7. They are at Utah, who was 5-7. They are at Houston, who was 4-8. Kansas was 5-7. They are at Arizona State, who was 11-3. They have Oklahoma State, who was 3-9. At Kansas State, who was 9-4. BYU was 11-2. UCF was 4-8, and at West Virginia was 6-7 last season. 3 winning teams for them as well. And now, the easiest schedule in all of major college football belongs to the Michigan Wolverines, the second Big Ten team on this list. They went 8-5 last season, but listen to these records of the teams that they play. New Mexico, 5-7, losing team. At Oklahoma, 6-7, losing team. Central Michigan, 4-8, losing team. So there is the non-conference. They're at Nebraska, who made a bowl for the first time last season in a long time, since 2016. They went 7-6, barely above 500. They have Wisconsin at home, 5-7 last year. They are at USC, who went 6-7. They have Washington at home, who went 6-7. They are at Michigan State, 5-7. Purdue at home, 1-11. At Northwestern, 4-8. At Maryland, 4-8. And then, of course, the game at the end of the season versus Ohio State, who went 14-2. So 2 winning teams on the schedule is all from last season. I expect some of these teams to get better. Some might possibly get worse. We shall see. But there you go. That is the easiest schedules in all of the Power 4. The hardest, 10 hardest schedules will be coming out in a video here shortly. I just did a shortened version of the Big 12's hardest schedules, the top 5 hardest, because I did the other 3 conferences and they were long videos and nobody watched them. So I shortened it up, just like I hope I shortened this one up, and it is a more consumable for all of you guys out there. So if you like it, like the video, please share with other people. If you want to stick around and you want to know when my videos are going to be posted, then the easiest way is just hit the subscribe button. That is free, and then push the bell icon for notifications so that you know when every video is posted on this channel. Other than that, thank you everybody. Enjoy this spring weather. Shave the beard off. Next is the mop. I just didn't quite have time to get to that yet, but man, this feels a whole lot better with that beard gone. Hopefully it looks better too. So thank you everybody. Have a great day out there. But go blue, baby. Take advantage of that easy schedule. You can't slip up once.